Hi, everybody. I graduated from my 12th year of straight of being homeschooled April last year, class of 2024. And since then, I have been continually asked by coworkers and friends of friends what my thoughts on it were and what it was like to be homeschooled for all that time. So, I figured I'd share some of that information with the internet, see if I could better inform the masses on the consequences of homeschooling. My target my target demographic with this is going to be parents, but in my experience, the people who end up watching these sorts of videos are kids who had terrible experiences being homeschooled. So I can imagine there are a lot of those people watching this video. But for the parents who are watching this, just please do what you can to make sure your kids don't end up like that. I'm going to start out, I'm going to explain my experience that I had being homeschooled, all the stuff that, all the highs and all the lows, the stuff that helped me and that hurt me. And then I'm going to talk about what I think is most important for other parents who are considering homeschooling their kid from the experiences I've had and the experiences of a lot of my friends. Now, I do have a disclaimer. Everything I talk about is not backed by any studies or psychology stuff. It is 100% anecdotal. I'm not sure how much you guys care about that, but it felt like I should let you guys know. Everything is 100% the truth, as best as I can put it out there, but it is anecdotal. So there you go. And my second disclaimer is that I have no idea how to edit visuals. So until I can figure that out, you guys are going to watch me drive through London in Forza. And now, with that, let's dive into the consequences of homeschooling. So I started homeschooling in the first grade and homeschooled every single year until I graduated in the class of 2024. My first few years, I think it was my first 4 years of homeschooling, I was homeschooled normally. What I mean by that is I woke up at home and I did all my homework at home and I didn't ever leave the house, basically, for my first 4 years. And if you hear a little jingling and meows, that's my cat. He got into my room, so I apologize. But during those first 4 years, it was exactly as how I just described it. Never left the house and just did a curriculum that my mom picked out for me. And I also had very few tests, which it kind of hurt me in the long run, and I'll get back to that later. But yeah, very few tests, long weekends, which was very nice, and I did a curriculum that my mom picked. Once I hit 5th grade, I joined a homeschool co-op called Classical Conversations, or CC. I'm going to call it CC just so it's easier. Now, CC is a group of homeschool families. They would get together every week on Monday, and they would go through a curriculum that the co-op chose instead of all the parents. So the co-op had a little bit more authority to choose the curriculum than average Joe Schmo parents, which was pretty nice. As outside of that, our Mondays when we met up were built very similar to how I understand normal public school days are. We would get there at 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, and we'd have lunch for an hour, 12 to 1, and then we wouldn't get out until 3. Sometimes 3:30 once you got older. But, yeah, the kids would get grouped into these classes based on whatever their grade would be. So 6th graders would get grouped together, and they'd be separate from the 5th graders, and they'd be separate from the 7th graders, and the 7th graders would be separate from the 8th, and from the 9th, so on and so forth. Every week after you met up on Monday, you would have the rest of the week to go through the assignments you got, among which were usually a hefty amount of math, some very solid debate courses, and literature, which were wonderful. I fell in love with writing because of that. And after the end of the week, you come back the next Monday, you present all your papers, you present all your projects, and yeah, that was essentially every single year of homeschool I had from 5th grade all the way through 12th. Now, similar to normal homeschooling, like I talked about earlier, there were very, very, very few tests throughout the entirety of CC for me. That kind of sucked because it gave me a terrible fear of normal tests, and it made it really hard for me to take them, which is a skill that I really needed. I really needed to know how to take tests. In the long run, I suppose it didn't really matter. I ended up getting a 29 super score on my ACT, which helped me get into the college that I wanted to, and it even let me apply for honors. I'm waiting right now on an email back from the honors college, but it let me do those things, which is pretty cool. So I would just say right now, if you decide to homeschool your kid, make sure they know how to take a test. Moving on. When 7th grade rolled around for me, I went through the universally dreadful experience known as middle school. Homeschooling did nothing to make middle school any better. It was still a terrible time of being around terribly hormonal human beings, and it was abysmal. It sucked. If there's anyone out there who has ever enjoyed middle school, please let me know, because I have yet to meet you. And then I got to high school. I was 14 when I went into the 9th grade, and the first 2 years, my freshman year and my sophomore year, were abysmal. They were horrid. I had absolutely no friends, and that was pretty much the only problem with them. It just goes to show how important it is. But, yeah, those first 2 years of high school, I had no friends. I was incredibly lonely. And in the tail end of my sophomore year, I lost the only two friends that I really had. And in retrospect, several years later, it was kind of the best thing that happened to me in high school. They weren't really good friends looking back on it. And losing them taught me a lot of stuff about how to actually be a good friend and made my current social circle possible. But at the time, it really hurt. It really hurt to lose those friends. And it wrecked me coming into my junior year. And given the fact that middle school was so terrible and the first 2 years of high school were so terrible, I didn't have any hopes that the second half of high school was going to be any better. However, in my junior year, I met my fiance. And I'll keep it short because this video is about homeschooling and not really about high school relationships, even though I'd love to talk about that sometime. But I sincerely believe that God brought her into my life to turn it around. She was my first introduction to a true friendship, and I had no desire for romance, so I was only focused on having a friend. She was perfect. Everything I needed in someone. With the motivation I got to be better for her, I reconnected with the Lord, which again is not what this video is about. I'd love to talk about that too, but some other time. And my life completely brightened up. It did a full 180. I got confirmation from the Lord that I should be dating my new friend, and we began to date right before my senior year. And my senior year was wonderful. I had a completely new class of, I think with the exception of one person, I had never met any of them. I got brand new friends. Three of those friends that I met are my groomsmen, which is really cool. And my social life kept improving. My academic life took to the skies. I got much smarter, and I had some much better friends. So even though the first 2 years of high school really sucked, they taught me how to make the second 2 years some of the best of my life. And since I've graduated, I've been working a part-time job to save money before I go to school. I'm set right now to get married before I go to college, which is a wonderful opportunity. And all in all, things turned out really well for me, like shockingly well for me, despite having those rocky years in the middle of being a part of that co-op. However, because of that, I have some critiques of homeschooling and some words of caution for parents considering it for their kids. And my hopes with those words of caution is to try to get as many parents to keep their kids from going through all the terrible things that I had to go through. When people ask me what I think of homeschooling, the first negative that comes to mind is the social aspect. It's kind of a running joke that homeschoolers are either smart with no friends or they're dumb with no friends. And that's unfortunately a pretty accurate depiction of what homeschooling is like, even for me with all my with being in CC and having a class. It was very accurate for me. It was very accurate for a handful of my other friends too. I was fortunate enough to not only have CC but also Brazilian Jiu Jitsu. I did that for about 8 years, and I worked there for nearly four, I want to say. And that helped me get very comfortable with talking to adults, talking to people twice my age without having any really giant hiccups. But because I had that opportunity does not mean that A, I didn't struggle with socializing and making friends. And B, it doesn't mean that every kid had an opportunity like that. There are so many classmates and friends I had that were plain oatmeal kids. And what I mean by that is they were bland. They were so bland. They had no idea how to talk to people. They were completely socially unaware. I felt bad for them watching them interact with people. And that's 100% the fault of homeschooling. And rectifying the plain oatmeal epidemic is 100% in the hands of the parents. Giving your kid the opportunities to make some friends and learn how to talk to people is a skill that normal homeschooling can never give a kid, because the kid's always going to be home. And that issue can be made so much worse by parents who don't know how to teach their kids. Parents who don't know how to give their kids curriculums. I see this all the time online. There was something about like unschooling as like a branch of homeschooling, and that was literally just parents not bringing their kids to school and just answering the questions that the kids had naturally and not actually teaching them anything. That's parenting, okay? That's not school. You need to give them a curriculum. They gotta shed some tears on some paper, all right? Give the kids a curriculum, please. And if you don't know how to give the kids a curriculum, there is no shame in that. It's a tough thing. It's not a bad thing if you don't know how to give your kids a curriculum. But if you don't, swallow your pride. Either go to a co-op like I had, or do your research. Find some good stuff. Go into homeschooling and approach it with the respect that it deserves. Because if you don't, your kid is going to be plain oatmeal kid. And they're going to hit their 20s, and they're going to join the several thousands of people on the internet who are talking about their terrible experiences homeschooling and having to rectify their lives that were completely messed up because their parents never taught them anything, and then combined with that, they never learned how to socialize. And those two things are the problems with homeschooling. It places every ounce of responsibility on untrained parents. So parents, please, 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 make sure your kid has an opportunity to learn how to talk to people. Let them make mistakes in that department, because then they will learn. And please make sure they're learning what they need to learn. So in the end, I'm glad I was homeschooled. It kept me out of a lot of trouble that public school would have definitely gotten me into. And solely because of that, I can recommend homeschooling. But to all the parents who are thinking about it for their kid, make sure you know how to teach them. Make sure they're learning all the math and English and history and science that they need to, because if they don't, they're going to spend a good chunk of their early adulthood trying to teach themselves all the stuff that you guys should have. And the second thing is, you need to give your kids opportunities to socialize. Show them by example, voice cracking. Show them by example what it means to be a good friend. Help them fix any of the many mistakes that they will make in their social lives. And if you guys can take care of that, I think homeschooling is absolutely a smart move for you. And if you can't take care of it, like I said, there is no shame. It is a very hard thing to balance. It's a very hard thing to learn about. Just do what you think is best for your kid. Because at the end of the day, that's what school is about. It's about benefiting your kid. Alright guys, time for me to ramble. I kind of like when people do this like exit card thing and they just kind of talk more candidly. I've been talking, whatever. Anyhow, if you guys could like and subscribe, leave a comment and all that good stuff. That would be lovely. I started this channel to save some money for a house so that my fiance and I can be in a good spot financially. Even if it's not for a house, having money is always nice. Whatever y'all do to help with that, spread the word about my videos is beyond appreciated. And if you want me to make better videos before you do any of that, let me know what I can do. Let me know what I can do to improve. Hopefully, I'll be making a few more videos like this, just talking about the stuff I've learned in life as a young adult. Yeah, so share y'all's homeschool stories in the comments. Ask questions if you have them. I would love to answer them. Have a good one.